back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is springtime around here. Gives me a chance to stretch out, have some more conversation. We've been talking some Terps around here and spring training and even a little horse racing later on in the week as we get ready for Kentucky Derby season. But every spring, I get invited to this guy's big banquet over on the west side of town with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. This year, Ed Reed will be Frank Kelly's guest. Always great to have Frank Kelly on from Kelly and Associates and payroll and services and all that great stuff that we're always doing around the Beltway. But it's lacrosse season in the Kelly family, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Frank?
Well, it is, Nestor. And we are excited about the FCA banquet Monday night, March 9th. We'll talk a little bit about that with Ed Reed, but this was
the
a fun
Chief
weekend.
of Staff, Ed Reed. That's his new title, right?
I love it. He's heading back to his alma mater to be Chief of Staff. I'm sure he'll have a lot of great influence there. And, he has a real presence here in Baltimore, too. He's back. He's working with kids. He cares about young people at risk. And, we're very, very excited to have him be our speaker at the FCA banquet. It's Monday night, March 9th, 6 p.m. at Martin's West.
Well, look, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about Fellowship of Christian Athletes and everything going on with your football program, Baltimore Magazine on your Game Changers recently. But lacrosse is like the biggest I want to do a little lacrosse with you because it feels to me, and we've been Facebook friends for a long time, right around this time of the year, you go into the lacrosse rabbit hole and you come out right around Memorial Day, right?
That's true. And it's exciting. It's an exciting time. And it was an exciting weekend. For me, I went to Calvert Hall, but Cornell University played lacrosse there, and Cornell was in Baltimore, and they played Towson University at Towson Friday, and were victorious. Towson had a phenomenal year last year. They're struggling a little bit this year. They'll figure it out. But Cornell won then, and then Saturday, Hopkins is a hometown favorite, and the University of North Carolina played Hopkins, and I had a nephew, Jacob Kelly, on that team, had a great game, and Carolina won. The Baltimore people don't love that, but it was good for my nephew and our family. And then
there's Sunday, a lot of blue in your family, man. From what I know, a lot of
blue, but there's a lot of red too. Blue and red, Cornell red, and so yes, Sunday, Cornell played High Point University at Calvert Hall. It was a unique game. John Torpy, the head coach at High Point, is a Calvert Hall alum, Ohio State alum, great coach. Had a great year last year. They were like 15-1, but they. Cornell emerged victorious yesterday at Calvert Hall, and then I got to watch Calvert Hall. Our youngest son, J.K., is a sophomore, but Calvert Hall is the number one ranked high school team in the country this year, preseason. That's a huge accomplishment. So last year they won a big championship, so the number one ranked high school team, and they're going to have a target on their back. So it's exciting to be back into lacrosse season for us.
Well, I often talk about what has happened to the Orioles here in baseball. Baseball and lacrosse have intersected. I mean, did anyone in your family play baseball? I mean, it's just a fair question to ask because I so think of your family as lacrosse, and I think it's very difficult to be both, right? I mean, it's impossible to be both in the modern era, right?
Well, in this state, baseball and lacrosse are both spring sports, but my dad was a pretty good baseball player in high school back up in Philadelphia, went to Monsignor Bonner, but his father, my grandfather, actually played in what was called the Wall Street League, which was like semi-pro or, be like AA baseball today. And he was connected to the Brooklyn Dodgers. So my dad has stories of meeting Jackie Robinson and others at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. So, I grew up playing baseball and was decent enough. I played football, baseball, ended up going to Calvert Hall for football. Thought I was going to play baseball, but the lacrosse coach recruited a bunch of us football players to play lacrosse, and I'm glad he did. And I wasn't super skilled, but kind of hustled and athletic enough to get around, and it opened some doors. And, obviously Baltimore's a hotbed for lacrosse, but it's a great baseball community too. And
well, especially at that time. I mean, you and I are similar age, man. Like, the Orioles were a big deal in the 70s, right? Like, to say I'm not going to play baseball anymore, I'm going to play lacrosse instead of baseball, that may have been a tough sell. It was certainly a tough sell in Dundalk, Frank. I mean, I played baseball,
Well,
we all played baseball.
Funny, I have three brothers, John, David, Brian. We all work together in our business here at Kelly, but John's kind of our innovator. He's the risk taker, I guess, in some ways, in the sense of, he's the first one who played lacrosse, and we gave him a hard time. Like, why are you playing that dumb sport? That's crazy. What are you doing? You got to play baseball and football, and he played football, but, he was right, and then all my brothers ended up playing, and the game's been good to us, and at the end of the day, sports are about competition, getting better, team, and relationships. And the relationships we've built through the lacrosse community have been special.
Frank Kelly here from Kelly and Associates, of course, the CEO there for all the stuff they do in payroll and benefits and all the cool stuff. You see the Kelly name, but the FCA name's usually not too far away, and every year you invite me. I've seen John Harbaugh do this speech a couple times. I saw Ben Watson on Radio Row a couple of weeks ago doing his retirement tour down in Miami. I said hello to him. He and his wife gave an incredible presentation a few years ago as well. Lou Holtz came out. I was up front, and my glasses are still wet from Lou. I had to towel off afterward with Lou. But we're going to have Ed Reed. And, when you signed Ed Reed up, it was just Hall of Famer Ed Reed. And I was literally on Radio Row a couple weeks ago down in Miami. It was the day that I attended Ray Lewis's party that they announced at the U that Ed Reed's going to be the chief of staff. So I can't wait to hear what chief of staff does in Miami, right?
Absolutely. That will be interesting. Well, we're planning to do a unique, like an interview format with Ed. So we'll be talking Hall of Fame. We'll be talking Ravens. We'll be talking Miami Hurricanes. We'll be talking high school football.
Whatever you do, don't let me ask the questions. I'll wreck it. You don't want...
Yeah, we'll take a question. We'll take one question from you from the floor. Okay?
I got one for Springsteen that time too, so that's good. I'm good.
No, but I'm Ed. We see Ed in Baltimore. He's working with kids. His foundation's trying to help at-risk youth in our community. So we're helping to promote what he's doing as well. And at the end of the day, FCA is really about helping kids fulfill their God-given potential through the influence and platform of sport. It's faith-based, so we're trying to, what we call, is develop three-dimensional athletes and coaches, mental, physical, and spiritual. And that night we'll be talking a little bit about how we do that through camps. Our summer camps are exciting, and school-based groups we call huddles. And, so it'll help share the story and vision of FCA, hopefully raise some money for the programs, and have a great night with Ed.
Fellowship of Christian Athletes, the big night is with Ed Reed. You can learn more at mdfca.org. MD, Maryland, FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes.org. The big banquet's out in Martins West. It is the 9th of March. Ed Reed with the silver. I mean, he's going to strut it in. If anybody's ever watched the Ed Reed YouTube video of him inspiring the Miami Hurricanes, now he's the chief of staff there. So we'll get out and say, for you with FCA, when did it come to you? Give me the first time, your background with it, because you've been involved as long as I've known you, going on a quarter of a century, and you're very passionate about it. You run this event every year at Martins West. I see these young people. I see some familiar faces. I see new faces every year, and every year you freshen this thing up. But it's such a passion for you. At some point, it knocked on your door.
Right. Well, I appreciate the question. I grew up in the faith tradition, attended church, like a number of us, but it kind of went in one ear and out the other, and ended up at Cornell University and was playing football and lacrosse, and God allowed some injuries and some coaches who didn't think I was as good as I thought I was to kind of get me in a position of being humbled. And I had a teammate from the football team talking about having a relationship with God, and I'm like, I'm kind of religious. He goes, I'm not talking about religion, I'm talking about relationship. And I ended up getting involved in a group up at Cornell called Athletes in Action, and it really helped my faith and my relationship with God grow. And as I began to grow, I was so excited about what I was learning, I began to share it with other teammates, and just had a passion to do that. So when I graduated, I went back to Calvert Hall, came back to Baltimore, and went to this administration, asked if we could start a group. They let us, and it started as Athletes in Action, but the summer of '87, someone invited me to an FCA camp, and I went. I loved it. It was geared more towards high school. Athletes in Action was more college pro, so we changed it to FCA in 1987 at Calvert Hall. We started with a small huddle. We're now in over 300 schools, so what started with that one school is now in 300 schools. We'll have thousands of kids go to camp. But to me, it's all about just helping people understand how exciting it is and integrated it is to have a relationship with God that's personal, real, daily, and so as I began to learn and understand, I just wanted to share that good news with others in a relevant way, and there's no more relevant way in a lot of our lives than sport. We see these athletes, coaches, teams win, lose, life, and to integrate faith into life is exciting to me, and that's what we try to do with FCA. So I have been excited and passionate. It's been fun to see it grow. And the one-word definition of FCA is influence, just trying to have a positive influence in the lives of athletes, coaches, and all whom they influence themselves.
Frank Kelly's going to be joining us again on Baltimore Positive on my dad's 101st birthday, which is March 5th. So we'll honor my dad on that day. So we always honor my dad on March 5th. It's one of the big days in radio here. We honor all dads on March 5th. So we'll be with Frank Kelly. We're going to be doing Baltimore Positive that day as well. So and we'll be doing it at Fadley. So Crab Cakes will be involved. Nothing more Baltimore Positive than that. I got you guys on the 9th. I just wanted to give a shout out to my friends at Sports Boosters. I'm with Quint Kessenich on the 11th. The Sports Boosters people, every 5 years or so, they asked me to come out and do a little presentation. And they said this year they wanted to do baseball and lacrosse, and they mistakenly thought that I knew something about lacrosse, Frank. So I had to call Quint. So I got Quint coming out. Lacrosse and this time of the year locally, not just for your family, but for other people around here and for what it means. You talk about Calvert Hall and being involved in all of that. Lacrosse and where it is locally, and you talk about FCA as well, and you guys just got honored for some football stuff, and you've been involved. FCA and lacrosse, where does that stand? Because so much you bring football guests out in a lacrosse season every March, but I know lacrosse is a big part of this for you as well, right?
Sure, it really is. And you mentioned the game changers. You're very excited that the FCA Parkite Saints were recognized through Baltimore Magazine. Coach Garrick Williams, they have 9 youth teams and cheerleaders, and we're very supportive there. But, FCA lacrosse is a growing ministry in itself. We have a number of folks on staff full-time taking the FCA message, the good news, into the lacrosse community. We have about 14 club teams here locally, and then just dozens and dozens of teams around the country. And there's FCA lacrosse activities going on all over around the world. We have staff in even Uganda, Kenya, Ukraine. And again, it's just trying
I've
to...
seen the pictures, Frank. I can attest.
Yeah. Well, I got friends all over the world. It's interesting. And, one of the things we're very excited about with the game of lacrosse is it's been recognized as an Olympic sport, provisional recognition. And so lacrosse will be back in the Olympics in 2028 in L.A. So I think that 24 games are in Paris. So, again, a lot of people have worked behind the scenes to help get the game recognized at the highest level. It's growing all over the world. In 2018, we had there were 48 countries that played in the World Lacrosse Championships in Israel. And Netanya, Israel, we had a group of FCA athletes and coaches go, what we call Team Serve. We practiced, scrimmaged against many of the developing countries and just trying to help the game grow and to share.
Does Canada grow the game? Because it is an inherently Canadian game, right? I mean, does Canada claim it in such a way? I mean, when I think of Canada, I think of curling and skiing. They have hockey. They have other things. Is America the one pushing lacrosse, or as a global game?
Well, you know what? It's lacrosse is known as the creator's game, and it was really started up in Canada, and it was recognized by French missionaries over 100 years ago when they were coming to the U.S. in the mid-1800s. They saw Indians playing this game, and actually it was probably earlier than that, but they saw them playing a game. It was a war game, and they were playing lacrosse to, instead of killing each other, they played this game to settle water rights, who would get access to water, these different Indian groups. And, and then it's evolved into the game that we know today, but a lot of it started in Canada and northern New York, and you still have the reservations up there, and some of the best players in the game are natives. One of the controversies with the game becoming an Olympic sport is in the World Lacrosse Championships, Iroquois Nation participates, but the world doesn't recognize the Iroquois as a nation, but the lacrosse world has, so there's a little controversy. What would the Iroquois nation do in reference to the World Championships? Half the players could play for Canada, half would probably play for the U.S. team, but some of the greatest players of all time, the Thompson brothers, for example, today, are playing it. And, it's exciting. There's a pro game going on. There's a newly formed league. It was established by Paul Rabel, a Hopkins great, called the Premier Lacrosse League, has a huge contract with NBC Sports. Last year was its inaugural season. Our son, Stephen Kelly, played on one of the teams, Archers Lacrosse Club. So, and we did play, the league played up in Toronto, but some of the best players in the world come from Canada, and there's a little rivalry between the U.S. and Canada. We're really working together to spread the game throughout the world. which is fun.
Yeah, I'm on this website, the Premier Lacrosse League. I'm glad I took you down this rabbit hole to give me all this lacrosse knowledge. I'm going to have to ask Ketchinich about all this stuff in front of everybody at the Sports Boosters event. The event is March 9th. Fellowship Christian Athletes. Ed Reed will be speaking. And if you want to learn more about it, by all means, go to mdfca.org. You can get all that, as well as some lacrosse background. Frank, you and I are going to get together in a couple weeks, do some Baltimore Positive. So I am looking forward to that. We're going to be together on March 9th. So I'm going to get some lacrosse background from you to make me smarter for the 11th as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing you. We're spending some time together here this spring. It's always great to have you on. Appreciate your sponsorship and your support of what we're doing at Baltimore Positive WNST as well. And we'll see you a few times. So look forward to checking back in. And hey, we're going to have a longer agenda on Baltimore Positive now. We got to fix the city. We know that's the most important thing, right?
Right. Well, I love it. And I love talking lacrosse. You know, a lot of NFL former NFL and current NFL coaches like Bill Belichick's sons and daughters are playing the game. The game is growing. It's an incredible complement sport to football. So you got some great football athletes playing the game and NFL players and families connected to the game. We'll talk more about it. I'm looking forward to March 5th. Thanks, Nestor.
You got it, Frank. Kelly joining us here. Kelly and Associates and payroll and benefits and all the good stuff that they do, as well as the Fellowship of Christian Athletes event on March 9th with Ed Reed. Frank Kelly is going to be our guest and our featured guest on Baltimore Positive, along with Sheila Dixon on March 5th. We're going to be at Fadley's talking about the mayor's race. There's a great segment with Matt Gallagher and Damien O'Doherty. I know Matt Gallagher, too. Matt Gallagher and Damien O'Doherty out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. You might hear it at WNST this week as well. mdfca.org to learn more about the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and their big event with Ed Reed. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore. I'm out on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn doing Terps and Orioles this week and Combine stuff this week as well. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.